The coffee shop is quiet, almost unnaturally so. Every table is occupied, but nobody speaks. Faces glow with the pale light of phone screens. Fingers scroll mechanically through endless feeds. A woman sits near the window, earbuds in, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Her face is perfectly still, the kind of stillness that suggests complete peace. Then, without warning, a single tear rolls down her cheek. She catches it quickly, glancing around to make sure nobody noticed. Her hand moves with practiced efficiency, wiping away the evidence before returning to her phone. To anyone watching, nothing happened. She remains as composed as before, just another person enjoying their morning coffee. But inside that quiet moment lives an entire story nobody sees. She had received a text message 3 minutes earlier. Her father was in the hospital. The doctors were running tests. Her mother's words were careful, measured, trying not to alarm. But the weight of those sentences pressed against her chest like a stone. She wanted to leave immediately, to book the next flight home, to be there. Instead, she sat frozen in her seat, calculating. She had used her vacation days last month. Her project deadline was in 2 days. Her manager had mentioned budget cuts just last week. The tears came not from sadness alone, but from the crushing realization that she could not afford to fall apart. Not here. Not now. Perhaps not ever. She is not an exception. She is the portrait of millions of modern people, calm on the outside, fracturing within. This quiet crisis happens in subway cars and office bathrooms, in parked cars after work, and in bedrooms at 3 a.m. It happens behind the practiced smile of the server taking your order, behind the steady voice of the colleague leading the meeting, behind the cheerful emojis in group chats. We have become a civilization of emotional ghosts, present in body but absent in feeling, moving through life with our inner worlds carefully locked away. Most of us have learned to wear an emotional mask just to survive. Society rewards those who appear calm, collected, in control. We celebrate the person who never breaks under pressure, who handles crisis with grace, who keeps their composure when everything falls apart. These qualities are listed on resumes and praised in performance reviews. Emotional stability has become a currency more valuable than honesty. But what we call stability is often something else entirely. It is emotional masking, the practice of hiding how we truly feel to avoid judgment, rejection, or the burden of explanation. The mask becomes second nature. We rehearse responses until they sound natural. When someone asks how we are, the answer arrives automatically, smooth and practiced. Fine. Good. Hanging in there. Cannot complain. We have trained ourselves to deliver these lines with just the right tone, the right facial expression, the right amount of casual lightness. The performance is so convincing that sometimes we forget we are performing at all. The boundary between the mask and the face beneath it blurs until we are no longer sure which is real. All of us have memorized this phrase. It sits on our tongues, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Nothing is wrong. I am fine. Do not worry about me. These 4 syllables have become the most common lie in modern conversation. We say them to friends who ask if we need help. We say them to family members who sense something is off. We say them to ourselves in the mirror when the reflection looks tired and hollow. Nothing is wrong becomes a mantra, repeated so often that we almost believe it. But this protective layer we have built is not protecting us anymore. It is poisoning us from the inside. The mask that was supposed to shield us from judgment has become a prison cell. We wear it so long that our faces forget how to make other expressions. The muscles of genuine emotion atrophy from disuse. What started as a temporary defense mechanism has evolved into a permanent state of being, and we are paying a price we do not yet fully understand. Why has this emotional disguise become toxic to our mental health? The answer lies not in individual weakness, but in the structure of modern life itself. We exist in an environment that was never designed for human emotional needs. Our ancestors lived in small communities where everyone knew everyone, where crisis was shared and grief was collective. Today we live among thousands of strangers, connected by technology but isolated in experience. The infrastructure of our emotional lives has collapsed, but we are still expected to function as if nothing has changed. Our brains are under constant assault. Notifications arrive every few minutes, each one demanding attention, triggering a small spike of cortisol. Messages pile up faster than we can answer them. News feeds deliver an endless stream of crisis, outrage, tragedy, controversy. Email inboxes never empty. Social media algorithms feed us content designed to provoke strong reactions, keeping us engaged, keeping us scrolling. Short videos play on loops, hijacking our attention systems. The brain has no space left to process genuine emotion because it is too busy processing information. This is not the environment humans evolved to handle. Our emotional systems developed over millions of years to deal with immediate, concrete threats and joys. Seeing a predator, finding food, losing a loved one, celebrating a birth. These experiences happened in real time and real space, with beginnings and endings. Modern stimuli never end. The feed refreshes forever. The news cycle runs continuously. Work messages arrive at midnight. Our brains attempt to process everything and end up processing nothing fully. Emotions become background noise, dulled by the overwhelming volume of input. When stress becomes chronic, when the assault never stops, the body makes a choice. It activates what some researchers call shutdown mode, a state where emotional responses are dampened to conserve energy. This is not a conscious decision. It is a survival mechanism, the same system that helps people function during extended trauma. The brain essentially decides that feeling everything would be too overwhelming, so it turns down the volume on all feelings. You continue to move through your day, completing tasks, having conversations, going through the motions. But inside, something has gone quiet. From the outside, this looks like calm. You appear stable, functional, even admirably composed. People might praise your ability to stay level-headed. But inside, you are not calm. You are exhausted to the point where you no longer have the energy to feel sadness. The tears do not come because the system that produces tears has temporarily shut down to preserve resources. You are not at peace. You are in conservation mode, running on emergency power, and the lights have been dimmed to make the battery last. This is only the surface. Mental overload explains the mechanism, but not the reason. The deeper question is why we let ourselves reach this point. Why do we push until our emotional systems shut down? Why do we not stop earlier, rest more, ask for help? The answer is that we live in a society that makes emotional vulnerability feel dangerous. We have been taught, sometimes explicitly but more often through 1,000 subtle lessons, that showing weakness is unacceptable. Society does not welcome sadness. When someone expresses genuine pain or fear or exhaustion, the response is often dismissive. Cheer up, look on the bright side. Others have it worse. Stay positive. These phrases, however well-intentioned, carry an implicit message. Your negative emotions are inappropriate. Your struggle is a burden to others. You should keep it to yourself. Sadness becomes reframed as negativity, as if being honest about pain is the same as choosing to wallow in it. Being tired is interpreted as being weak. Admitting fatigue in the workplace can derail a career. In social settings, talking about exhaustion brands you as someone who cannot keep up, someone who lacks the stamina expected of modern adults. Rest is seen as laziness rather than necessity. Taking a mental health day is met with suspicion rather than support. The person who admits they are tired becomes the person others avoid promoting, avoid inviting, avoid trusting with responsibility. So we learn to hide our tiredness, to drink more coffee, to smile through the fog of exhaustion. Having a crisis is judged as lacking maturity. Adults are supposed to have their lives together. Falling apart, even temporarily, is treated as a character flaw rather than a normal human response to overwhelming circumstances. People going through divorce are expected to keep it private. Those facing financial disaster are supposed to maintain appearances. Anyone struggling with mental health is advised to be discreet. The message is clear. Handle your problems silently. Do not let your mess spill into public view. Real adults suffer with dignity, which means they suffer alone. In response to this environment, many people develop what psychologists call the fawn response, a trauma response where we prioritize making others comfortable over expressing our own needs. This goes beyond simple politeness. It is a deep-seated instinct to avoid conflict, avoid burdening others, avoid any situation where our emotions might create awkwardness or discomfort. We learn to read rooms expertly, to gauge what emotional expression is acceptable, to modulate our feelings to match what others can handle. The fawn response manifests as constant reassurance. When someone asks if we are okay, we say yes immediately, even when the honest answer is no. We add a smile to make it more convincing. We might even joke about our situation to signal that it is not serious, that we are handling it, that they should not worry. This response is not dishonest in the manipulative sense, it is protective. We are trying to protect others from the burden of our feelings and protect ourselves from the vulnerability of being seen in pain. But in protecting everyone, we end up isolating ourselves. The pressure to appear strong goes even deeper when we realize we have fewer and fewer people to be honest with. Even if we wanted to remove the mask, even if we decided to risk vulnerability, where would we go? Who would we tell? The infrastructure for emotional honesty has eroded. We live close to each other in physical space, but remain distant in emotional reality. Modern life has created a strange paradox. We are more connected than ever through technology, but more isolated than ever in genuine human contact. Friends meet for coffee, but everyone checks their phone between sips. Conversations happen in fragments, interrupted by notifications, never going deep enough to reach anything real. Surface topics dominate. Work, weather, plans for the weekend. Funny things seen online. Nobody asks the harder questions and nobody volunteers the harder answers. These gatherings feel more like parallel play than true connection. We occupy the same space without actually meeting each other. Everyone goes home feeling vaguely unsatisfied, but unable to articulate why. Families sit together in living rooms, but each person inhabits a separate digital world. Parents scroll through news feeds, teenagers watch videos with earbuds in, children play games on tablets. Everyone is present, but absent. Dinner table conversation becomes logistical. Who needs a ride tomorrow? What time is the appointment? Did you pay that bill? The opportunity to share inner lives never arises because the space for that sharing has been filled with screens and schedules and the gentle hum of devices charging. The spaces where people used to share emotions have vanished. There are no more front porches where neighbors talk in the evening. No more regular gatherings where community members catch up. No more extended family dinners that last for hours. Even religious and community organizations, which once provided built-in social structures, have seen attendance decline. The result is that most people lack a regular, reliable place where they can be emotionally honest. They have no venue for vulnerability. Without that space, emotions accumulate inside with nowhere to go. When the infrastructure for sharing disappears, feelings get trapped. They build up like pressure in a sealed container. People walk around carrying months or years of unexpressed emotion, waiting for an appropriate moment to let it out. But that moment rarely comes. Life keeps moving. New stresses arrive before old ones are processed. The emotional backlog grows, and beneath it all lurks a fear that has become perhaps the defining anxiety of modern life. The fear of being a burden. This might be the most pervasive and damaging fear in modern society. It shapes how we interact with everyone around us, coloring every potential moment of honesty with anxiety. We are terrified of imposing our emotional needs on others. We assume that everyone else is already struggling with their own problems and that adding ours to their load would be selfish, inconsiderate, unfair. So we stay quiet. We keep our pain private. We convince ourselves that silence is kindness when it might actually be slowly destroying us. This fear is not irrational. It is based on observation. We see how people react to emotional disclosure. We notice the slight tension when someone starts to talk about something difficult. We register the quick subject changes when conversations get too real. We feel the subtle withdrawal when we admit we are not doing well. These reactions teach us that emotional honesty creates discomfort, and discomfort is something we have all been trained to avoid. Nobody wants to be the person who makes things awkward, who brings down the mood, who turns a casual interaction into something heavy. Modern people are afraid of becoming an emotional burden. This fear has become so normalized that we rarely question it. We accept as obvious truth that our feelings are too much for others, that expressing need is imposing, that asking for support is selfish. This belief operates in the background of our minds, filtering our words before they leave our mouths, editing our experiences into more palatable versions, ensuring that what others see is always manageable, always light, always fine. We tell ourselves that everyone else is already tired. Everyone has their own problems. Everyone is barely keeping it together. How could we possibly add to that? The logic seems compassionate, even noble. By staying quiet about our struggles, we are protecting others from additional stress. But this reasoning contains a fatal flaw. It assumes that emotional sharing is only a burden, never a gift. It ignores the possibility that honesty might actually deepen connection rather than strain it. And it forgets that the people we are protecting might be doing the exact same thing to us, creating a world where everyone suffers alone to spare each other from knowing about the suffering. There was a man in an office, the kind of person who seemed to have everything figured out. When co-workers asked how he was, his answer was always the same. Fine. Good. All good. His tone was friendly but final, inviting no follow-up questions. He had a reputation for reliability. He never complained. He never caused drama. He showed up on time, did his work, and left. People liked him, but did not know him. He existed at the periphery of office social life, pleasant but distant, there but somehow not quite present. Then one day he requested a sudden leave of absence. It was approved without question. He was entitled to the time. But people wondered. He had seemed fine the day before. No explanation was given beyond the standard personal reasons. It was only weeks later, when he returned, that the truth emerged in fragments. A co-worker happened to mention it to another, who mentioned it to another, until everyone knew. His mother had died 2 weeks before he took leave. During those 2 weeks, he had continued working full days while driving 300 kilometers round trip every night to take care of his younger sister. He had been functioning on almost no sleep, carrying immense grief, managing a sudden caregiving responsibility. And he had not told anyone. When people learned this, they were shocked. "Why did you not say anything?" they asked. "We would have understood. We would have helped." His answer was simple and devastating. Everyone seemed busy. He did not want to add to anyone's stress. He thought he could handle it. He thought sharing would only create problems. So he smiled and said he was fine, and drove through the night, and showed up the next morning and said he was fine again. He did it until his body forced him to stop, until the exhaustion became dangerous, until he had no choice but to step away. Even then he framed it as personal reasons, as if admitting the specifics would be too much to ask others to know. This is not a story about exceptional strength. It is a story about a dangerous norm, The idea that we must handle everything alone, that asking for acknowledgement is weakness, that the appropriate response to personal crisis is silence and endurance. This man was not unusual, he was typical. Millions of people are doing the same thing right now, grinding themselves down to nothing because they believe their struggles are theirs alone to carry. And from this belief emerges a dangerous phenomenon, a false peace that masquerades as health while concealing damage. The consequence of all this emotional suppression is not resilience. It is a specific kind of breaking that happens slowly and quietly. People do not collapse dramatically. They erode. The constant performance of being fine while not being fine creates a disconnect between inner and outer reality that eventually becomes unsustainable. The self splits into two versions, the one others see and the one hidden inside. Over time, the gap between these versions widens until it feels impossible to bridge. The first casualty is energy. Pretending requires constant effort. Maintaining the mask takes concentration. Every interaction becomes a performance that drains a little more vitality. People find themselves exhausted by social contact even when they crave connection. They avoid gatherings not because they dislike people, but because they lack the energy to keep up the act. Work becomes harder. Simple tasks feel overwhelming. The fatigue is not just physical. It is the deep tiredness that comes from living inauthentically, from never being able to fully relax, because relaxation would mean letting the mask slip. Then comes the emotional numbness. When feelings are suppressed long enough, they do not just hide, they fade. The system that generates emotion starts to shut down more permanently. This manifests as a strange flatness, an inability to feel much of anything. Good news brings no joy, bad news brings no tears. Everything exists in the same muted gray zone. People describe it as feeling like they are watching their own life from behind glass, present but disconnected, seeing but not experiencing. They want to feel something but cannot seem to access the feelings anymore. This numbness is not depression in the traditional sense, though it overlaps. It is more like emotional exhaustion, a state where the capacity for feeling has been depleted through overuse and underexpression. The person still functions. They go to work, maintain relationships, complete responsibilities. But there is no vibrancy, no enthusiasm, no real engagement. They are going through the motions while waiting for something to pierce the fog, for some experience strong enough to make them feel alive again. Sometimes that experience comes, often it does not, and the numbness stretches on. The third consequence is the loss of connection. When we cannot be honest with others, we cannot truly connect with them. Relationships become shallow, maintained through small talk and surface interactions. Friendships drift because neither person feels they can bring their real self to the conversation. Romantic partnerships suffer under the weight of unsaid things. Family bonds weaken when everyone hides behind their version of fine. People find themselves surrounded by others but fundamentally alone, lacking anyone who truly knows them, anyone who sees past the mask to the person beneath. This isolation feeds on itself. The less we share, the less practice we have in sharing. Vulnerability becomes harder the longer we avoid it. Opening up starts to feel impossible, like a muscle that has atrophied from disuse. We forget how to ask for help. We forget how to admit struggle. We forget that connection requires honesty, and that honesty requires courage. So we stay locked inside our own experience, watching others from a distance, assuming they are fine because they look fine, maintaining the collective illusion that everyone is managing just beautifully. But there is always a moment when the mask slips. It might be dramatic or it might be subtle. It might happen publicly or in the privacy of complete solitude. But it comes. The moment when the performance becomes impossible to maintain. The moment when the gap between inner and outer reality becomes too wide to ignore. The moment when something inside us says enough. Sometimes it happens on an ordinary evening. You are sitting alone after another day of being fine. The apartment is quiet. Nothing particular has happened. But suddenly you feel it, a vast emptiness that seems to fill your chest and your head and the space around you. It is not sadness exactly. It is something stranger, a sense of unreality, a disconnection so complete that you look around your own home and barely recognize it. You think about your day and cannot remember why you did any of it. You think about tomorrow and feel nothing. The emptiness is not peaceful. It is unsettling, like looking into a void where something important used to be. Or it happens after achievement. You reach a goal you have been working toward for months. The promotion comes through, the project succeeds, the thing you wanted to happen happens. You should feel proud, excited, validated. But when the moment arrives, there is nothing. No surge of joy, no sense of accomplishment, just a flat recognition that the thing occurred. You might smile and accept congratulations and say the right words, but inside you are confused by your own absence of feeling. This was supposed to matter. You told yourself it would make everything worthwhile. Instead, it barely registers. Sometimes the moment comes as a sudden urge to disappear, not in a suicidal sense, but in a desperate need to step out of your life for a while, to go somewhere nobody knows you, to have no obligations, to exist without the performance. The fantasy is detailed. You imagine packing a bag and driving somewhere remote, turning off your phone, not telling anyone where you are. Just vanishing for a few days into blessed anonymity, where you do not have to be fine or strong or functional, where you can simply be without witnesses. The strength of this desire frightens you because you cannot fully explain it. Nothing terrible has happened. So why do you want to run? These moments are signals. They are your soul trying to breathe, trying to be real. They are messages from the self that has been locked away, the one that is tired of pretending. The feelings are not random or meaningless. They are important information. Your system is telling you that something is wrong, that the way you are living is unsustainable, that you need to make changes before the crack becomes a break. The question is whether you listen. So how do we escape this toxic silence? How do we move from performance to authenticity? From isolation to connection? The path is not easy because it requires going against everything we have been taught. It requires rejecting the narrative that vulnerability is weakness and embracing the much harder truth that pretending to be fine when you are not is what actually breaks us. The first step is permission. You must give yourself permission to not be okay. This sounds simple, but it represents a fundamental shift. For years you have operated under the assumption that being okay is mandatory, that falling apart is failure, that struggle is something to hide. You must consciously reject these beliefs. Not being okay is not a character flaw. It is a human response to difficult circumstances. It does not make you weak or broken or inadequate. It makes you honest. Not being okay is actually a signal that your emotional system is working correctly. Pain means you care about something. Sadness means you have experienced loss. Exhaustion means you have been carrying too much. These feelings are information, not defects. When you allow yourself to acknowledge them without judgment, something shifts. The pressure lessens slightly. The mask becomes less necessary. You create internal space for truth, and that space is where healing begins. You do not have to share everything with everyone. You do not need to announce your struggles to the world, but you can start small. You can begin with minor moments of honesty that feel manageable. Send a text message to someone you trust. Not a crisis message, just a simple truth. Today has been hard. I am feeling overwhelmed. I needed to tell someone. See what happens. Often the response is relief. The other person admits they are struggling too, or they thank you for being honest, or they simply acknowledge what you said without trying to fix it. These small exchanges build the muscle of vulnerability. Learn to speak one true sentence. When someone asks how you are, try saying something real instead of the automatic fine. I am pretty tired, actually. This week has been tough. I am managing, but it is not easy. These statements are not dramatic. They are not demands for help. They are simply honest. They crack open the door to actual conversation instead of maintaining the wall of pleasantries. Some people will not know how to respond. That is okay. You are not looking for everyone to understand. You are looking for the few who will, and those few make all the difference. The second essential practice is learning to slow down. Our frantic pace contributes directly to emotional suppression. When life moves too fast, there is no time to feel. Emotions get pushed aside to deal with later. But later never comes. The backlog grows. Slowing down creates the space necessary for emotional processing. This does not mean quitting your job or abandoning responsibilities. It means building small pockets of slowness into days that are otherwise too full. 10 minutes without a screen every day. Just 10 minutes where you sit with nothing to do, nowhere to be, no input coming in. Let your mind wander. Notice what thoughts arise. If emotions surface, let them. Do not push them away. Do not judge them. Just observe. This practice is uncomfortable at first because we are so unused to being with ourselves without distraction. But discomfort is part of the process. The discomfort itself is information about how desperately we need this space. One real conversation every week. Not a catch-up call where you exchange updates. A real conversation where you talk about something that matters, how you are really feeling, what you are struggling with, what you are questioning. This requires finding people who can hold that space, who will not try to immediately fix or dismiss what you share. These conversations are rare in modern life, which is exactly why we need to create them intentionally. Schedule them, protect them, treat them as importantly as any work meeting because they are maintaining your emotional health. The third practice is being present when you are with others. This is harder than it sounds. We have trained ourselves to be partially present everywhere, fully present nowhere. We listen while planning what to say next. We nod while thinking about something else. We ask questions without really wanting to know the answers. True presence means putting down the phone, making eye contact, and actually listening to what someone is telling you beneath their words. An attentive gaze can save someone. When a person feels truly seen, truly heard, it changes something fundamental. They realize they are not invisible. Their experience matters. They are not alone. You do not need to have perfect advice or solutions. You do not need to make everything better. You just need to be there, fully there, witnessing their reality without judgment. This gift of presence is so rare in modern life that when people receive it, they remember it for years. Being present also means sharing yourself authentically, not performing, not managing impressions, not trying to be who you think others want you to be. Just being yourself, messy and uncertain and real. This vulnerability often gives others permission to do the same. Your honesty creates safety for their honesty. Connection deepens. Suddenly you are not just two people going through motions. You are two humans recognizing each other. And finally, there is a truth we need to remember, one that cuts through all the noise and performance and fear. Modern people do not break because they are weak. They break because they have been strong for too long. There is a difference between strength and rigidity, between resilience and suppression. True strength includes knowing when to rest, when to ask for help, when to admit you cannot carry something alone. False strength is the brittleness that comes from never bending, never showing vulnerability, never acknowledging limits. If you are smiling at the world while falling apart inside, you are not alone. Millions of people are doing the same thing right now, in coffee shops and offices and homes everywhere. You are not failing. You are human. And there is nothing shameful about saying the truest thing you can say. I am not okay. These 4 words are not defeat. They are the beginning of honesty. They are the first crack in the mask. And through that crack, light can finally enter. Would you prefer this script to have more specific examples or metaphors? Or would you like the tone to be adjusted in any way?